Wallawani to all my people and everyone else here today. Nyaga Keiran Indian Waniwandian Duraga. I'm Keiran Stewart Assheton from the Waniwandian people of the Yuin Nation. And I would like to acknowledge the people of the Kulin Nation on whose land we're gathered today. I am also the president of the Black People's Union, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Voice to Parliament referendum. So the BPU is firmly opposed for a proposal to a voice to Parliament. The BPU maintains the position that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people retain full sovereignty over the land and waters of this continent, and the Australian government is an illegitimate occupation. The voice to Parliament has been touted as a progressive step forward for Indigenous rights in Australia, but it's not. Just wait for the tree. The history of colonisation in Australia is a history of theft and exploitation of Indigenous lands, resources and labour. This process of colonisation continues today. We continue to be dispossessed and have our sovereignty and self-determination undermined by the illegitimate government. The Voice to Parliament will not address this ongoing process of colonisation and dispossession. It merely creates the illusion of progress while allowing the illegal occupation to continue its theft and exploitation of our lands and resources. By establishing an advisory body to provide Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people with a voice to Parliament, the proposal gives the appearance of Indigenous inclusion and representation in the government. But this representation is superficial. It's fake. It does not address the root causes of our oppression. It doesn't address the fundamental issue of our sovereignty. All it does is reinforces the paternalistic idea that the colonial government and the Australian people have the ultimate say over our affairs. The voice is just a form of assimilation. It seeks to assimilate our people into this corrupt political system. It does not recognise our unique cultural, social and political systems. It just seeks to make us conform to non-Indigenous norms. It is just a form of tokenism that seeks to placate Indigenous people without addressing any of the issues that our people actually face. It doesn't provide a pathway forward for self-determination. It doesn't provide a pathway towards land being returned to its rightful owners. It doesn't recognise our unceded sovereignty. All it does is reinforces our dependency on the colonial government. The voice will be yet another way for the government to co-opt Indigenous leadership and decision making, and to distract from and undermine the real issue of sovereignty and self-determination. It's just a subservient advisory body. It can only make recommendations. It will not have enforcement power. The proposal will not give us the power to make decisions that affect our lives. That's not self-determination. The proposal will not address the ongoing violence and trauma inflicted on our people by the colonial occupation. It will not stop our people being murdered, locked up, or forced onto the streets. It will not challenge the structures of power and inequality that perpetuate our oppression in the colony. The only thing that will stop the ongoing colonial violence is the full enforcement of our sovereignty and full self-determination. We have long called for the return of our stolen lands and resources. It is a necessary step towards decolonisation and self-determination. But the government is unwilling to listen to us despite offering us a voice. A voice that reinforces the status quo of our dispossession and our dependency on the colonisers. They say repeating the same actions again and again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Well, by this definition, anyone who thinks that the voice will help us must clearly be insane. We've had dozens of advisory bodies before this. Dozens. Both Indigenous and non-Indigenous. And what happens every single time? The government ignores these voices every time they say something that the government doesn't agree with. There is nothing in the Australian political history to suggest that the government would listen to our recommendations under a voice. The voice seeks to placate Indigenous activism and resistance and channel our revolutionary energy into electoral and parliamentary politics. The proposal is just another form of whitewashing. It seeks to erase the history of Indigenous resistance and activism. It does not recognise our ongoing struggles for sovereignty and self-determination. Instead, it just seeks to co-opt our leadership and activism for colonial purposes. In fact, the Voice to Parliament proposal is a form of neo-colonialism. It seeks to maintain the power and privilege of non-Indigenous elites in Australia. It reinforces the idea that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are just a minority group who have no real voice, who have no real self-determination, no real sovereignty. All it does is put us into a bracket where we require government protection and intervention, like they've been saying to us for the last 235 years. The racist old colonial narrative that we are unable to govern ourselves and that we need the guidance of white authorities has been around far too long now. But again, we see another attempt by the corrupt government to maintain its control over us. Another attempt to silence any voice in opposition to the never-ending colonial violence brought upon us. Again, we see attempts to undermine our resistance and activism by offering us token representation in the illegitimate colonial government. We don't need a voice to Parliament. We already have voices. We've had thousands of voices for the last 235 years. What we need is the government to have ears. But even more than that, what we need is for them to hear us and what we've been saying for the last 235 years, which is give us our land back. So I'm not here to ask you to vote. I'm not here to ask you to vote yes or no. I'm here to ask you to look beyond that, to look beyond the Australian parliamentary system. A change is possible, but it can only happen as a united front. We need to come together under the laws of this land, the traditional laws of this land, and we need to bring back sovereignty and full self-determination for our people, and we need to overthrow this capitalist colonial government. I'd like to chuck him on the spot and invite Uncle Robbie up to have a yarn, talk about the voice. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Keiran. That was a really enjoyed listening to that. I think it's right on the money. You know, for me, for Aboriginal people, it's been 250 years of unchecked genocide going on in this country. Only people realise that's the case. It's all premeditated stuff. And, you know, like 250 years after these people were told to get consent to negotiate, we're talking about a voice to Parliament. There's no treaties in this country, no consent, which means there's no jurisdiction. This is a falsehood. They're racist extremists. This country is in complete denial of our human rights, our humanity, our very existence. Why would you think Aboriginal people would want a voice, a token advisory voice, in a rubbish, racist, foreign constitution that's denied us our very existence? Why? It's not us who want it. Any Aboriginal person I've spoken to doesn't want the voice. Our most recent rally on Invasion Day said we don't want the voice. Which Aboriginal people want the voice? It's only the ones who are getting paid for by the state. They're the only ones who want their interests. It's going to validate their gap making over the last 40 years since being incorporated. Incorporated into what? Like Keiran said, we're sovereign people. We have sovereign rights. Sorry, Oz. Who the hell do you think you are? You're living here on the proceeds of crime. The most heinous of all known crimes. This is your foundation. It's called genocide. And what this is, this voice proposal, this rubbish, is just more of the same. Why would you vote? Why would anyone vote, white or black? There's a perfect opportunity here to take the quantum leap into the sovereign treaty republic, all right? Independent country, not managed or controlled by foreigners, the British. First came off the rank is getting rid of the British Crown properly. Officially ending the war, the secret undeclared war that's going on. You're either totally blind, ignorant, or racist in the extreme if you can't see what's going on in this country. There's no more excuses, Oz. The game's up. The lie has been exposed. Terra nullius is a legal fiction. Fictitious, racist lies built this country. So that's what it's premised on at the present time, right? Now, what I see, what's going on with this voice proposal, if Aboriginal people are seen to be a part of that, it's like we're validating that. We're legitimising that constitution. We're a part of it, where now we're not a part of it, for good reasons. We don't want to be a part of it now. It's had its day. It's racist rubbish. It's colonialism. That's what it is. Why would we want to be involved now when all our ancestors resisted it? Who died for it on Battlefield Australia? And we could have signed off years ago if we wanted to be like them. It's not our aims and objectives. That's not what we want to be. Not impressed. It's backward. It's dark age shit. Now, we had a pristine environment here. Clean water. Lots of trees. Magnificent trees, thousands of years old. A unique flora and fauna that they destroyed. Victoria, the premier state, the first ones to constitute on the basis of terra nullius, 1851. 1851, 1854, around that time. The first constitution in this country, this continent, was here. And it was based on the fact that there was no Aborigines around left. All right? We were done. So that's how the country started. And just up the road here, they created the white-only policy, federal constitution, just at the top of Gertrude Street there in the exhibition buildings. People know this history. It's a shameful racist history, Australia. You know, if you want your children to grow up with lies, deceit, fraud, well, you know what you're going to get at the end of the day, don't you? You know, if you're going to build your foundations on that sort of shit, well, you know what this is going to turn into. This is not a British country. It's an invaded and illegally occupied land. We all know this. Why are we the most jailed people on earth in our own country? Why are they taking our children away like they are? Why are they creating the conditions of life with the intent to destroy our people? In fact, all you've got to do is get a copy of the Genocide Convention, which is about preventing that crime after 1940, after the Second World War. It was the New World Order, basically. Get a copy of the Genocide Convention and tell me what part Australia's not guilty of. Not guilty of, because everything in that described as genocide, they're clearly guilty of, folks. This is your history, Australia. This is your history. And by the way, it's not called Australia. What a stupid name. Australia. Are you Australian, brother? We got identity. We got real identity. We got real culture and we got real law. Not this Mickey Mouse shit. I think Mickey Mouse was the king of Mumba once. It's true. You know, the monarch of this Mumba. You know what Mumba means? All you mob going down to Mumba, you know what it means? It's Aboriginal language. It means kiss my ass. So go and celebrate. That's the real voice of Aboriginal people. And if you want to know more, a guy called Bill Onus coined that phrase. One of our legends, our black men of Victoria, coined that phrase. There's a whole history here that people don't know about, but it's worth knowing about. Because you can stand up to crap like this, because it's the truth. And that's where they fall over. You know, this is a lying, racist country. And all the people, I know you turned up here with chains around your neck and hands as slaves, but all you got to do is get off your hands and knees and stand up, and these dogs will fall over. They'll fall over because they're weak in mind and spirit and heart. They've got none. They're fake, they're frauds. So time's come, folks. This is our time. It's called a sovereign treaty republic. It's a win-win. We get rid of this filth called the British Crown, all their heirs and successors, strip that wealth back off them, that stolen wealth. You know, our people share. This represents the law of this land. It's a feather of the wedge-tailed eagle, Bunjil, creator, ancestor, most ancient of all laws. Not Mickey Mouse, colonial law. That's lawless mindlessness. Look at what they've done. Now all these boxes, that's nothing, that's not culture. It's a pretty depraved society. It's the worst of all the British colonies. It's the only one that hasn't got a treaty. What does that mean? We're still at war? If you look at the stats on Aboriginal people's well-being, health, longevity, you think there's a war going on. How many people are in jail? What for? These people haven't got jurisdiction over us. That's why they want us to recognise their constitution. That's what it's about, this voice. It's about Aboriginal people recognising the colonisers' foreign constitution to legitimise it. Then they'll do a deal with King Charles III and step into their Republican bullshit. That's what the plan is. But not being a part of their racist constitution is our bargain and chip here. We don't want to be a part of your bullshit. This is our land, and our law applies whether you like it or not. You've got to just start dealing with reality sooner or later, Oz. You can't live in denial. Unless you live in Egypt, of course. But our day will come. It's come. The war's over. You're part of a 250-year, 53-year resistance. Now, this land is covered in our people's blood. Remembering those people, right, who died defending this place from foreign invasion. It's only celebrating the invaders' wars and the blood they spilt attacking somebody else on the other side of the earth. And grow up, Australia. Recognise the people who fought for this land and died. See any monuments? I see you still got Batman's treaty up there in Collins Street. That poxy dog built this town. Don't forget this. This is how it all begun. Batman's treaty, native police forces, the British Crown, the constitutions, state and federal came out of here. Right? We're not going to give up our land, we never will. I just want to say thank you to everyone, particularly you, Keiran, for organising today. And we've just got to keep having a go, folks. You know, I remember going to rallies with my brothers and sisters here. There was only a couple of people at these deaths in custody rallies and invasion. It was only a few people like this. That's how it began. But it grows. And when you've got the truth on your side, you're invincible, folks. And you can stand up in their courts or anywhere else. Put them in their place. They're piss weak. So I just want to say thank you and congratulations for being a part of our liberation struggle and helping us get over the line. But that doesn't mean voting in their bullshit constitution. And we want a new constitution, one that's for the people, by the people. We'll write it this time, okay? We'll write it. But it's underpinned by the sovereignty, the divine law of the original people. That's what gives it credibility and validity. Nothing else, right? We know how it rolls. You know, we're here for the long haul. And yes, our day has come. You just got to see that. It's happening. They're unsustainable. Their day's over. They're lost. And they need our law. This country needs our law. It needs it. It heals our people and the land and anyone around us. So it's something worth holding on to and not letting go. That's why I'm here today, because we never say die. You know, we've got so much love for our ancestors and our land, like nobody else on this continent. You know, we care about all our people who are buried here and all that peace that's been disturbed. Thanks for that, Oz. Talking about making peace is a divine law. Get with the program and you're welcome, right? There's no other way. Don't come here with your deluded notions of superiority, right? It's a failed state, like the rest of them. Come on. We're in a situation where we can really take some giant steps forward in this country and not just showing how it's done here in Australia, but around the world. You know, we're talking peace on earth like it was. Restore and restitute. How you found it, Oz. And that's what we want. Not about money. Treaty's about peace, more importantly. So restore that, and we can work together, I reckon. All right, thank you, and thank you again, Sharon. Keep the voice going. This voice.
Well, it's been a long time since I arrived in apartheid Australia, the country that actually invented apartheid. Queensland sent it to South Africa. So I wasn't really happy to come, but I was very privileged to spend the first 3 years of my life in Australia with the people of Dagaragu, Waddy Creek, on strike, strong, taking their land back, nothing in their way, and building a community that was whole, looked after itself, had obligations and responsibilities. And now, apart from being washed away by climate change, they have been completely smashed. Alice Springs is a war zone with men with guns roaming the streets. The town camps with no real houses, little bits of tin. And why the town camps? Because they put the children in detention in Alice Springs, so the families come. Town camps, because the health system doesn't work, so people have to come in for that. So 2023, 1973, that's a long time for me. But how long has it been for the first people who were first invisible and then unnecessary and then necessary for the slavery? Now considered unnecessary again, a weight, costing money. They explain it in millions of dollars. And yet, About a week ago, maybe more than that, maybe the end of last year, a station called Mount Doreen. Have you ever heard of that? A cattle station, Walbury Land, Tanami. It went on sale from the family that has owned it since 1928. And we know what that date means in terms of Forest River massacres, Coniston massacres. It went on sale. It sold for $76 million. And each piece of cattle on it, you had to pay $2,000 for. And yet no one thought of just taking that station and giving it to Walbury people so they could look after their children, so they could control their lives, as they have always done. Cultural practice, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. How many years? Hundreds of years. Maybe thousands. And yet, they're still using the words reconciliation. Well, I had a friend back at the Tent Embassy that called it reconciliation. Recognition? Huh. A voice? We've had plenty of voices. Nobody listened. So if we get a voice, what are we going to do? Expect them to listen? Or maybe we have to increase the sign language. The sign language on the streets every time. Because that's our voice. Getting together on the streets. No justice, just us. That's it.